Start the meeting. John will be here in a second. Okay. Welcome to the January 6th Zoning Advisory Committee meeting. And, okay, so that's for the solar overlay. Good. They're all the same, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Okay. So last time we had a good discussion around the conversions of residential property and the potential changes to the accessory family dwelling unit. Yes. So the changes to existing lot structures and uses, 210-128, as well as 210-126 accessory family dwelling units. So, and I think, Sundar, what you had mentioned from the minutes, but from our discussion last time, a lot of it centered on, well, shouldn't we change this? And then certain people of the opinion that if we make too many big changes, it won't go through town meeting, so let's try to keep it small. And so, so this is essentially a compromise, but, you know, I can walk you through what we agreed on last time. And that's, you know, what I'm hoping for is that what we talked about and more or less agreed on last time, we can move forward and we can hopefully vote on this today to get it in front of planning board. So the first item is the accessory family dwelling unit, which is 210-126. Okay, and that the changes, first is in the title, striking family. In paragraph B, again, striking family. In paragraph C, striking family in the first line. Rhea pointed out I missed one instance of that in the third line, which includes the accessory family dwelling unit, so striking that as well. And then striking that, let's see what sentence is it? It's the second sentence. The existing unit shall accommodate an additional family unit only if related by blood and a member of the additional family is 60 years of age or older. So that was striking that. Yep. However, got to keep in mind that L does mention the whole related by blood, so we'll get to that in paragraph L. Okay. Next change is paragraph E, striking the sentence regarding an interior doorway shall be provided between each dwelling unit as a means of access. Okay? So we struck the interior doorway requirement, doesn't mean it can't be done, but we kept the stairways to any additional unit shall be within the structure, so they're not going to be exposed on the outside of the building. So everybody was reasonably happy with that. And overall, our intent has been to keep the single family nature obvious that there may be a second unit there. Okay? So it still looks like a single family home. I know this also applies to, no, this is single family homes. Yep, single family residential. Okay. It's the other bylaw that applies to two family homes.
If I may, but if they need to have a second means of egress,
then it would need to be a stairway within.
But then also has to be a door. Like I just did it on Grove Street, and I had to go outside because it was a second floor unit, and there was no way to go inside to put a stairwell. Because there already was an inside, and they just said,
yeah. But you
need a second, so the second one they said really has to be outside.
Yeah.
So I had to put another door.
Couldn't you close it?
When I went to Board of Appeals.
So even though the bylaw says it needs to be interior, they said, but you don't have to do that.
Well, I already had an interior one, and then the only other wall was a roof. And so I had a...
Right, so that's my question, because last week we were talking about this very thing.
But I don't know that he is doing an accessory family dwelling unit. So I don't know if it's this bylaw that...
Well, it would have been, no matter what, even if I did it as an in-law, it's the same thing, because it was on the second floor, it was above the garage. have to be on the
But
outside.
this does not allow for that. All stairways to additional stories shall be enclosed within the exterior walls of the structure. So this bylaw does not allow for that at ZBA. But it could well be that they were using a different bylaw. So, and it wasn't under.
No, it's not
this-
even bylaw. No, this is, you need if correct me if I'm wrong, you need a means of egress.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
A second way,
Yeah.
way of getting out.
I understand.
And and in order to get out, I actually had to take a window out and turn it into a door.
We get that. Our question is, and we were asking this last week, can ZBA overrule a bylaw? Because the bylaw says clearly, all stairways to additional stories shall be enclosed within the exterior walls of the structure. But it sounds like ZBA said to you, no, you don't have to worry about that bylaw.
No, it wasn't that. They just said that they told me I had to do what I did. It wasn't even part of the bylaw.
Right, so.
Yes,
Oh,
so
yeah.
therefore, they were
overruled the bylaw.
overruling the bylaw. If you were doing it under this bylaw,
Right.
which I don't know. I don't know if you were doing it under this bylaw. If the work that you're doing is under this bylaw or not.
Well, it's still a single-family home that actually, well, I was turning it into a two-family, but.
Okay, so that would
But
be
even
under the
if I was
duplex law
doing it, even if I
instead.
was doing it as an in-law, the only way that I would have been able to make it an in-law apartment, because you still have to have the people be able to get out in case of an emergency, was to put.
Or construct an interior stairwell.
Or, yeah,
That's not
construct an
under the-
interior stairwell. You'd need to construct some sort of stairway, because they'd need a second means of egress. So it would have to
The
be,
bylaw says, if it's an in-law apartment, or I mean,
Yeah.
Accessory dwelling unit.
that you would have needed to construct an interior stairwell for your second unit.
instead of an exterior one.
No, I would say because it needs to have two egress instead of the interior doorway. It just says and doorway. Just
But
doesn't
but
have-
again, it's a way of getting out of the house.
No, I understand that.
You know, and so you went, but to put one on the inside means you're going back into the house.
No,
get out.
you're just staying inside the house.
Open to a door to the outside.
The idea being that,
See, I
okay,
already
so
had that.
let's make it clear that,
I already had
that
interior-
he's
I
doing a
already had
duplex. He's doing a duplex anyhow,
Right,
right?
but it's
He turned
worth-
this into, so the duplex bylaw applies, not this bylaw. The duplex bylaw does allow for exterior stairways, as far as I know.
No, it's not a duplex either.
You just said it was duplex.
You
No,
said you're making a duplex,
no, I made it into a two-family.
A two-family is a duplex,
isn't it?
because
Oh.
do means two.
No, I understand that, but usually those are, it was an accessory family dwelling that I turned into a two-family.
Okay, it's a two-family dwelling.
But they
Not-
never got it permitted.
Not technically speaking under the accessory dwelling unit. It's a two-family dwelling. Which means that, you see, because the accessory dwelling unit is all about it being subordinate in size and, you know, look to the main unit. And the two-family dwelling units, they can be equal in size, or they can be unequal, but they don't have to be a particular ratio of unequal. And they also don't have to look like they're the same unit. They can look like two different units.
Right,
So-
but to my point is that this was built over a garage. There's one interior stairwell coming up through the garage. If there was a fire in the garage, you don't want to go back down another stairwell to go into the garage to go out of the building.
Right. I understand that.
You know, so he can go on the opposite side of the garage, build another stairway that goes to the exact same place where the furnace is, where it could be, where the fire could be. So they wanted something that direct
So
exit.
your secondary access was through the house?
My primary exit was through the house. I put a secondary outside the house off of a deck.
So the,
But you said that was through the garage, right? You said the stairwell that you built, you just said, was through the garage.
No.
No, there was already one through the garage.
is that the primary access?
And that was always the primary access.
Okay.
That was always that was the only access. And then they said, you need another access, and, you know, and it has to come out directly, not back into the garage. And so
You
what
know-
I'm saying is if, for an accessory family dwelling, the exact same thing could happen, but the ZBA.
It could happen, yes, you're right.
Because, a lot of these things are above garages and,
Yeah.
that's, and people did that initially, so it didn't look like it was anything.
Right, right.
And,
Now-
so that, what I'm saying is maybe we should put it, to keep it out of the ZBA, that it not must be, or something that,
Unless required for fire safety, something like that?
The ZBA can give a variance.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So,
a special, because that's why I had to go for a special permit.
right, and they're going for, whoever is going for the ADU is going for a special permit, essentially. So if they're going for a special permit and they need exterior stairways, they could theoretically also then apply for a variance.
That was actually the only stipulation for mine was that I did that. It was so
Okay.
expensive.
So, Ted, I know that this was somewhat important to you, that this still be in here.
Yep,
Because of the, the encouragement to keep it like a single-family character.
yep.
So,
Still important to me.
yeah. Do you feel that we should add a stipulation about unless required for fire access, or simply leave it to the ZBA?
I think we leave it just the way that it is, and if the ZBA decides that there has to be a variance, then the
Which they have
applicant,
done in the past.
the applicant would have to apply for a variance to this particular aspect of it.
Well, variance or a special permit.
No, this is a
There's
special permit.
There's a huge difference.
Currently, it would be a variance because there is no provision allowing the ZBA to issue a special permit for that.
Its variance it get expensive and there's
I
a
think
lot.
that's what we're trying to say, is that we think it should be a variance. We think it should be an extra burden to do a stairway outside the house, because that changes the look of the house. It changes, the.
So, Madam Chair, have we considered removing that line, meaning all stairwells
had.
shall be external? So, okay.
We
And that
had
was-
considered that, and
Okay.
that was basically the consensus at the last meeting, was that no, leave that in, because the whole point of this particular bylaw for the accessory dwelling unit is to keep it subordinate and to keep the look of the house as a single-family house.
See, what I tried to do is, because I didn't want the stair to look the same way, so I made it look like there was a wraparound deck,
Yeah.
and the stairs go down the back of the house so nobody sees it.
And that sounds great.
You know what I mean?
From
And
a
so,
look-
and that's what I'm
yeah.
saying, is that, because a variance is a high burden to put on somebody that, if they're trying to get their in-laws to move in, and it could be a real high, real tough one for somebody rather than a special permit.
This is the way I look at it. It's already in the bylaw this way.
No, I understand, but that's what we're
And-
trying to make it, I thought we were trying to make it less burdensome for people that
Yeah.
wanna do this, maybe we just have no stairways visible from the street. You know what I mean? Unless absolutely necessary, no stairways visible from the street.
And the-
Because that's why I tried making mine look like it had a really nice deck on the side, because, I wanted the same look at my house too.
And I like the idea of a deck. That's a really good way to handle it. But at the same time, if we're trying to make this still walking the line between people who want the neighborhood to stay the same and no disruption of the single-family character, and the other side of really wanting to make it easier for people to live their whole lives, birth to death, in their home, with a minimum of difficulty to make those changes. I think walking that line, to leave this in and to make it just an extra step, yes, perhaps a burdensome step, but an extra step to do stairways on the outside. I think that's what we're proposing and what we talked about last time as well. So.
Yeah, because if you look at it, for me, the first line says that it should adequate separate ingress and egress to the outside of each unit, right? So say that the apartment is above the garage, the separate exit is the stairway. You can't help it, but there is going to be an exterior stairway.
Because there has to be separate egress.
Egress. So then if you have to have an exterior stairway, all we can say is try to keep it within the structure of the walls, so.
That's true, it does give a little leeway in interpretation. That might not
I used to
even,
interpret that to mean one of the entrances could be through the garage,
yeah.
and the other one could be the main entrance of the
Through the
home.
front door of the house.
Yeah, so then that is, so.
No,
if
to the outside of each unit.
unit.
No, because if you're still going up to the, if you're still going up, you can't go through garage doors, those are not considered exits. Garage doors,
But there are regular doors on the side of the garages. There's
right, but that's what
doors for
that was my main entrance is.
Yep.
Well,
Right. So what I'm saying is you can have the interior door that goes into the main house. That's one egress. The other is the interior stairs that exit to the garage and out the side door. There's your two in and out. That are
So
not
so you're
going to
saying that
burn
there's,
garage.
so you're saying that there's a second set of stairs that are going up to the second floor of the garage?
On the inside of the garage.
But there's only one set of stairs. People
I
only
don't
use
know if
it.
we're talking about your structure or a hypothetical structure.
Right, no, I'm just saying, well, even a hypothetical, people wouldn't have
hypothetically-
two stairways coming into the garage because,
No, one door goes to the second floor of the main residence. You walk down past the kids' bedrooms and go down the front stairway into the living room of the main house. There's
That
one way
is-
into the dwelling.
That assumes that there is an interior doorway from that second
If there
unit
is,
into the
that's
main
what-
house, yes.
And then the other is the interior stairwell.
Because that would be two forms of egress.
And most of these I've seen in the neighborhoods that at least I think I've identified have not been above garages. My neighbor right next to me did exactly this within the 800 feet. It's an L that sticks off the house. And we don't have to worry about stairs at all.
no, that's good.
I don't think
Yeah,
that
that's even
stairs
better.
are actually the biggest issue. However, I would like to keep it the way it is. I don't know that I believe that most accessory units are above garages. And so I don't think that we need to make our plans around entering and exiting rooms above garages.
So the last line in this, all stairways to additional stories, does not apply in the situation that you mentioned, your neighbors.
No, because there are no
If you build
stairs.
something above the garage, does this apply, that last line?
I would like to hold it to apply, yes. Because if you don't have the interior door and an interior, maybe it's not the place to have an accessory dwelling unit. I don't think that our goal is to make every house accessory dwelling unit available, any more than it's our goal to make every piece of property developmentable, regardless of all other issues in the neighborhood. I think there are properties where it fits, and there's properties where it doesn't. For the ones where it fits, let's open it up a little bit. For the properties where it doesn't fit, sorry, we can't make it. Every single house has the ability to do this.
So by saying that, are we essentially closing the door to people who want to build an ADU on top of a garage because of that
No,
last?
No,
not if
because
have
they
an
can go to the
interior
ZBA.
door that goes to the main house.
And they can they also can go to the ZBA and
You can-
ask for a variance.
And they can get
But
a
then
variance.
they have to justify it
Okay.
and so on.
So if it influences anybody, Westboro has the same requirement.
What?
Westboro has the same requirement
This
Okay.
one right here,
to have interior to have egresses have interior stairways.
smart folks, those Westboro folks.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're gonna close that on E. K and L. So K, I simply put in brackets and highlights. This is the part that Carol really would like to see stricken. And I believe that we all came to the consensus last time that for this time around, we're going to leave it as is, because we don't want the discussion at town meeting to devolve into a discussion over how many years it should be between times you get an occupancy permit and renew it. So,
And I think, and I think the minutes say that Carol in the end said she's okay with that. She'll just propose the amendment
Okay.
rather than make it part of the.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna pull out blood, marriage, or adoption?
No, that's a next
That's,
question.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about this. I'm
Oh,
talking
okay,
about
I'm just
this.
saying, like, I'll give up on everything else as long as that one, because to me, that's the biggest, that's the
Okay.
one change that I don't see.
I understand, Madam Chairman, that this is basically being done so that this doesn't become a bone of contention in the planning board meeting. But is the implication of this that after 2 years, conceivably, the permit could expire and that structure could be asked to be demolished?
No, it's more of the occupancy. In order to be in compliance, the owner should be applying for a new occupancy permit with the Director of Municipal Inspections.
Okay.
Every 2 years.
Okay,
I'm not going to comment on whether or not I think that actually happens
sure.
and whether it's enforced, but that's the way it's stated that it should be done.
Okay, so hopefully it's a paperwork step and nothing more
Right,
intrusive than that.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, to L. So with K, we're not going to strike anything. It's going to stay as is for what we're proposing. Okay, for L. There were two options that we discussed with obviously a myriad of different, little changes possible. So the first one is leaves in the additional family related by blood, marriage, or adoption, okay? It says accessory dwelling unit shall mean a dwelling unit contained within or being an extension of a single-family structure to accommodate a caregiver or service provider or an additional family. We don't have to call it family, we can see it, or additional occupants, only if a member of the additional family is related by blood, marriage, or adoption to the owner of the premises. So, we have to strike the last part of the 60 years of age or older, because that's not legal. So, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's stricken no matter what, just, The other option is written below it, accessory dwelling unit shall mean to accommodate additional occupants, period. That's it. With no other specifications. Now, Rhea sent an email and commented that, well, she prefers option 2, but with an additional phrase, with the primary purpose to accommodate caregiver or service provider for the homeowner.
That's what I flipped
Okay,
over, trying
so
to see how it starts in the beginning. What is the purpose of this? I think I'm in favor of not defining family and letting that be a discussion. But I like it because the purpose is family or caregiver. I think I like leaving family in, but striking is related by blood, marriage, or adoption.
So the additional occupants are an additional family. It doesn't mean that the family of the owner of the premises.
I
You
like the
understand that?
idea family of the premises or a caregiver. But I think Rhea raised good points. How we define family
know.
today is very different.
Exactly,
But I don't think it should be strangers that you're making a couple bucks off of.
right,
And that's why I worry about just calling them occupants.
okay.
I don't want it to become a rental unit. I
Yeah.
think that's the purpose of this bylaw.
Yeah, the option 2 for me is open for interpretation, can be interpreted in any ways, and people can try to misuse that. Maybe option A, first one, like you said, we can remove the related by blood, marriage, adoption thing.
But then again, we have to really understand that if everything else at the beginning of this is true, that there is a door that must be unlocked between the home and the other one, because we're using it as a means of egress, if you're talking about the
I don't
second
think
floor.
that's true anymore, John.
No,
I think
we didn't say that
eliminated
it had to
the
be.
requirement of an internal door.
That's just one option.
No. What I'm saying is, because if that's the second, because you have to have two
But
means.
but that's only an option for the second. I'm just saying that's not going to be the case in all situations. Okay.
Right, but my point is that I don't think that anybody would have a stranger Because,
Yeah, my
again, you have access to the
my
house.
sister does, but,
My mother-in-law did once upon a time.
yeah.
Just rented out a room in the house.
I mean, they can lock it. They obviously can lock it, but the interior doorway is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister rents it out.
My mother-in-law, back when she did it, it wasn't even an accessory unit. It was just a bedroom that my wife wasn't sleeping in anymore. And she rented it out she put a want ad in the paper, so I got a room for rent.
Right, and are we trying to prevent that from happening with these
I think
amendments?
in this bylaw, if you're looking to rent an apartment, that's a duplex thing. This bylaw, I think, is about allowing people to live in their house or allowing in-laws to live with their family. That's the purpose of this. And so if we make it only occupants in the definition, I fear that opens the door to, well, now I'm just gonna rent out an apartment. Or a B&B, or whatever it is you want to do with it.
So if we start with option 1 and take out, we say if a member of the additional family is related to the owner of the premises.
That's it.
Take out the by blood, marriage, or adoption. So we're not defining how they're related.
That gives a
I
lot
mean,
more flexibility.
It does give more flexibility,
Yeah.
and you know, it's like common law, I mean, long relationships, whatever, is related to the owner of the premises.
That's where I think we go.
Okay.
We'd be less clear about what is a family in 2020, but indicate we're talking about family, not someone you're making money off of.
I agree that number 2 does open the door for misinterpretation or rather
Open,
wide
wide.
interpretation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because.
It could be unpalatable to the planning board also.
No, because
Tightening this makes sense.
and I know it's coming up in future, Airbnbs and all those things are coming up in future. We haven't looked at it thoroughly, so leaving a loophole here might
That's
come back
true.
to bite us for that,
That's
so
true.
maybe.
Okay.
I don't know, I think
So-
maybe I just have more faith in that people do the right thing.
So, yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm like person in town meeting saying, but if you say this additional family, a member of this additional family has to be related to the owner of the premises, how do we prove that?
Right.
How do they prove that from municipal inspections?
That's the
you know?
reason to not touch K. K feels like that's where you're checking that.
Yeah, but, well, I guess we can point to Kay, say,
I
well, the
think-
director of municipal inspections is,
Yeah.
you know, but really, I mean, I do think there will be somebody to bring it up, say, how do we enforce that? How do we even prove, how does any person prove, yeah, I'm related to them?
But we're pushing that over to the Department of Municipal Inspections.
Okay.
And let the enforcement officer deal with that definition.
No, that's not fair to them. That's not fair to them. That's, you know, they do a lot of work. You know, they're really there to make sure that buildings are built correctly, nobody gets hurt and all that. And they do a lot of that, day and night. You know, they start at 5:30 in the morning, inspecting electrical and plumbing.
But John, just for clarity, currently, this says, number C says related by blood marriage. So there is some way which people are being asked to prove, tell me how they are related. So how is this any different? So if we are not pushing anything at anyone, right? Because currently there is some mechanism, I believe, to say that, yeah, this person is actually my mother-in-law or my father-in-law, related by blood or marriage. Isn't that the same bar that we are asking, even if we do, quote unquote, push this responsibility to someone else?
But don't we, you know, when you work with a tight group at work, don't you say sometimes, oh, we're a family?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, again, it gets back down into, you know, you've been working with this person for 15 years, and it's just like, well, look, I've got a, you just got divorced. You want to come? Yeah, we have a place where my mother-in-law used to live. You want to live there? So you know, so how do we define it there? Well, he's part of my work family. You know what I mean? Again, you know, it's.
So to play devil's advocate to the devil's advocate, you could have a situation where maybe the owner has a son or daughter, and their significant other, who they're not married to, needs a place to live, so they're not related by blood, marriage, or adoption.
That's true.
They don't have a place. Or if you have a very close friend that you've been friends with for 40 years, and they need a place to stay, they're not related, but you may want them to have that place, and that wouldn't be allowed either.
And I think that's what we were talking about with family ought to be a little squishy. So I can't stand when my students do this in the classroom. They think they're going to end all discussion by telling me the dictionary definition of a word. Nonetheless, I'm not going to read every word. I promise you I won't.
I am impressed that your students know what a dictionary is.
Well, they know the online dictionary. Really what they do is they Google
And
the
they-
word.
They ask Siri.
I at
They
least
know
went to
to
the
pull
American
that up.
Heritage Dictionary.
Not the Urban Dictionary.
They ask Siri.
But if we had the word family and we left it without bloodlines, I don't think any board is going to say, well, it's my work family. And if you go to the definition 1, 2, 3, all are family in the way we're thinking about it. Definition 4 is a locally independent organized crime unit. And then after that, it's biology, linguistics, mathematics. Nowhere in the definition of family is your buddies that you've worked with for a long time. I have been a coach on teams, and it's gotten trite that every team says, we're a family. And I've said it because it sounds good at an athletic awards thing. No town official is going to say, well, that's what we mean by an accessory family unit. The guy you hurdled with is your family. I think that if we said family, it's understood that it could be your unmarried partner for whatever reason. I have a friend and they're clearly a partnership and they're not legally married. They both were married before. It could be you are the caregiver and you have a boyfriend. That's fine. It's still fitting the idea. I don't think family is so squishy that it's going to be interpreted as my work buddy got a divorce and he needs a place to crash so he can live in mine. I can't imagine any board in town would say that's what we mean by family.
So you're saying that would be allowed to have your friend?
No, I would say no, that's not what family means. What family means is you're the people you sit around and have Thanksgiving with, the people that are in table number 1 at the wedding, all of those ways that we understand who's on your Christmas card, and they don't have to be married to you to be on your Christmas
So
card.
my kids are not allowed to call any of my friends by their first names. Always has to be Mr. and Mrs. And then, but for many of them, they end up being auntie and uncle. And so my 30 and 40 year friends are it was just, like my friend Michael, that's been around forever. He said, that's what I was just saying, he got divorced and he came and lived in our nanny room for a couple months because it was all set up. It was a whole nanny suite. But if I had a more of an apartment thing, actually probably would have been better for him. But and it's just something that my kids grew up and he's just been an uncle. And then my kids don't really look at the difference of who's really, because they grew up having people that close. When you're talking about having Thanksgiving with them, we do.
Right, so are you pushing us to have a stricter definition of family?
I open it up even more.
Why?
Occupant.
Why? What does that achieve within the goals of this bylaw?
Again, it opens it up to the 21st century.
But the goal of the bylaw is caregiving or let your parents live with you.
Right, I understand that point, but then again, it's also, why can't we open it up for somebody that's having a tough time?
Because that's not the goal of this bylaw.
Okay.
Completely different point, but previously there was a definition that allowed a member of the additional family that is 60 years of age or older, who doesn't have to be related or not. Now that we are striking that off, that means a person who's not related, if they are seniors, cannot live there. So we may be losing something that we were giving so far, so we just have to be aware of that. Maybe it was used as apartments for senior living or something, but could be something that we are losing.
I don't know what, you might be right. But we are
Yes,
giving
you might be
caregiver now, which wasn't in there before.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, but I was like, but that was like completely odd, like not even related to anything else, and
I
there was
know.
an odd.
Yeah, I'd be
And I actually
interested in
think-
figuring out why that was there, like what was
I
that
personally think that they worded it incorrectly and
Yeah,
they
I
didn't
think so.
intend it that way.
Yeah.
That's my,
Well,
but
maybe.
nonetheless, it was in
Extension
there. I just think it was, I think it was
It is
worded
rated.
incorrectly.
I mean, I think
I'm just looking through this, and John G, maybe you can help me. Is there anything about owner occupied? I thought we saw it last time, and I can't
think
seem
I remember
to
seeing it,
find
too.
it.
Madam Chair, we could look at this purely from the perspective of what would it take to introduce some level of flexibility into this bylaw, or what would an ideal solution look like? I think those are, in my opinion, two ends of the spectrum.
Right.
And maybe getting this door open a smidgen is what we should aim for. And once that
I
door
heard
is open a
it's C.
smidgen,
See,
In C.
it can be forced open further. So from that regard, option
Owner
one.
record is resident, okay, got it. I agree. I think that that's the way we were talking last time, and that's what we need to remind ourselves of now, is that, that we're talking about just making this a little bit more flexible. As Mr. Terry suggested to us a few months ago, and to possibly make it a little bit easier for people to stay in their homes, live here for a longer period of time, and, and make it a little bit more affordable. So I think that there are lots of changes that could be made to this, and, I would love to rewrite the whole thing. But we tried that a couple of years ago, and it didn't work. So, okay. So with that in mind, thank you for finding the owner occupied. I knew it was in there someplace. I just needed to verify that with myself. So, are we agreeing that paragraph L will be the option 1 with the additional phrase stricken from this as by blood, marriage, or adoption? Just those words. So the final wording would be definition: accessory dwelling unit shall mean a dwelling unit contained within or being an extension of a single-family structure to accommodate a caregiver or service provider or an additional family, only if the member of the additional family is related to the owner of the premises.
How about related somehow?
I think that's
Implied.
Okay.
According to, like, if it's
Okay.
your son, yeah.
I would,
so we're striking by blood, marriage, or adoption,
correct,
keeping the other wording.
keeping the other wording.
So I just want to be clear.
Yes.
Ted, your definition by the American Heritage Dictionary
The crime syndicate one?
still
Except a
says blood marriage and
mafioso.
adoption, right? So by striking that out, in essence, we are expanding the meaning. I mean, I thought, Ted, you would insist on keeping blood marriage adoption here. I mean, if that's the intent here. But aren't we essentially expanding the meaning by striking those 3 words out?
I think, yeah, as I look at this definition, my guess is it's about time for the American Heritage Dictionary to look around at how families, still understood in the way families interact with each other, are composed today. What it says is 1A, a fundamental social group in society typically consisting of 1 or 2 parents and their children. B, children of one of these groups. C, a group of persons related by descent or marriage. 2, people in the same line of descent, lineage. 3, obsolete, all the members of a household living under one roof. And then independent organized crime unit, like the Cosa Nostra. It actually gives us an example.
So we can talk about this as being justified, we're allowing for non-traditional families.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay. So I would like to entertain a motion on, let's see, what are we moving? On recommending this to the planning board to be taken to town meeting to 2020. Is that correct wording, John? Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
So move.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Is that the sound of a check mark?
Yes. That it was.
I heard a ballpoint pen making a check markish kind of noise.
Okay. So,
Let's go back.
go ahead.
I did.
Minor change to non-conforming structure. So,
Down there somewhere.
very, we did discuss this pretty extensively last time as well. Essentially, John G. suggested that if a change were to be made, that we just add it as a paragraph at the end. So that's what I attempted to draft, okay?
I didn't go up. Sorry.
That's okay.
We have a separate meeting, I was just showing. The Urban Dictionary.
I know, the Urban
I wanted to see what the 2020
I know.
stuff was like all about.
I wasn't gonna go there, because I just was like, okay, we have to get out of here eventually. Okay, zoning enforcement officer, building inspector, I have no idea who would be appropriate here. So, John, can you tell me who the person would be responsible, or we can insert later?
So, it's a little complicated. So I think everywhere else it's Director of Municipal Inspections, who is currently serving as a zoning enforcement officer. However, there is an ad out, I think currently, to hire a zoning enforcement officer. So I think it should be zoning enforcement officer, because that, if it's the Director of Municipal Inspections, that kind of captures everybody. And
Got
if it's
it.
just a zoning enforcement officer, then that is already
But
set
that
forth.
part of the job,
Right,
it's, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so zoning enforcement officer may waive the requirement for a special permit under 210-128, item A, and possibly B, under the following circumstances. Alteration to an existing dwelling does not alter the footprint of the existing dwelling. Alteration to an existing dwelling does not alter the overall height of the existing dwelling. And the owner obtains agreement from all abutters, and we can talk about what the abutter list is, by signature on plans, drawings, showing the planned alteration. So, and we can add information about the process. So that is essentially what we were talking about last time. Limiting it to very specific situations where we're not changing the overall dimensions of the structure, but in the case of dormers, in the case of enclosing a porch, etc., that they would not have to go through the special permit process, okay? And that the zoning enforcement officer would be able to waive that. However, we did tend to all agree that there needed to be a process where they were talking to their neighbors, they were showing them plans, and they got the agreement of those neighbors. They need to get an official list of the abutters from the town clerk. I don't know how that's done and how it's supposed to be worded, so I'm gonna need your help on that.
Written into the bylaw?
No,
It's-
because the certain permits that you need to get abutters for are usually in the state enabling legislation. So I think in this one, since this isn't really a permit, so to speak, I think it should be stated in the bylaw, and it should probably be 300 feet, because I can see, it's the assessor that issues it, and I can see somebody going down there and saying, I need a list of abutters, and they're gonna say, for what? They're gonna say, I don't know, it's not an actual permit. They're gonna say, well, how far? And they're gonna say, I don't know. And then it's just gonna come back up to the building department. And if it's a new person that might not be familiar, then they might say, I don't know. So if you can clarify in the bylaw,
Okay,
might make sense.
I'm gonna have to rely on you to give that wording for us to vote on.
Now, do they have to have unanimous on the 300? Because again, that's one thing he was talking about.
Yes, so what we talked about last time was, we were talking about whether or not it would be one person objecting or two people objecting, and that we generally felt at that, at last meeting, is that even one person objects, just kick it to ZBA. So they have to just go through the process. If one person objects, we're not going to make the zoning enforcement officer responsible for saying, yep, okay, we're not, we're not making them take that burden of responsibility of saying it doesn't matter what that person objected to. Then it has to go to the ZBA. Okay? Okay. That's what we're saying.
If I may, through the chair, just propose some language for the abutters right now.
That would be great.
So I think it should be pretty simple and straightforward. So, I think it should say, the owner obtains agreement from all abutters within 300 feet of the proposed property, or the property of the proposed work, by signature on plans and/or drawings, showing the planned alteration.
Of the proposed work?
Of the proposed work. Yeah. The certified list of abutters
Yep.
can be obtained from the town assessor.
Okay.
Maybe we should say agreement from all current abutters within 300 feet. Because then that puts the implied requirement that they need to get a recent abutters list and not one that was from 6 years ago.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, the owner obtains agreement, should that be a time-bound process? I mean, should we mention anything regarding,
Prior to work beginning,
okay?
or prior to obtaining the,
Well, they have to get a permit anyway, so it'd be,
obtaining permit,
Or no later than like 6 months from the
Something
date
like
of
that. That is what I was
proposed work.
thinking.
And-
Actually,
From the date of proposed work,
Right.
it should not go too far
Right.
beyond.
so that it protects both the person who's doing the job as well as,
well, you can't start without a permit.
okay.
You can't start any construction without a permit.
And the permit by definition is only going to be granted if they've got agreement from everyone?
They're not, right, so they would have to go to municipal inspections
Sure.
to get a permit, and then we already said that they have to have the drawing signed off before that.
Okay.
okay, no less than
So it
6
all
months
happens anyway.
prior, no more than 6 months prior. No more than 6 months prior to obtaining permit.
What permit is this?
The permit that the zoning
Oh,
enforcement
sorry,
officer is
building
giving them.
Is it a permit or is it a approval or a sign off?
Right.
Because
It's waiving a requirement. What does that mean?
Yeah, but don't they still get a permit to do the work?
So they would get a building permit.
Yeah,
This is a building permit.
But this is separate than a building permit.
okay.
Because this is kind of the approval to not go before the CBA.
Yes, you
This
can't
isn't
conflate
an
the two.
issuance of a building permit.
This waiver. No more than 6 months prior to obtaining this
I
waiver.
would say issuance of the waiver.
To issuance.
Because this is something they would have to show to the zoning enforcement officer, that here is a signed plans or.
Yes.
In order to get a building permit.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so each neighbor is supposed to be signing and dating, and all of those signatures should be dated within the 6 months prior to them talking to the zoning enforcement officer for this waiver. Is that what I'm hearing?
So just to, again, play devil's advocate.
Yep, go ahead.
If they go with abutters within 300 feet and they have 300 abutters, are they going to have to sign the plan? Or if somebody comes in and attaches a separate sheet of paper with signatures, does that count? Because that wouldn't count for signatures for a town meeting petition. And that could be a problem if people haven't actually looked at the plans.
Yeah, and that's why we said signature on the plans,
Right, but if
because we
there's
discussed
300
that last
abutters, how
time.
are they going to fit 300 signatures on a
I don't
plan?
know. Are there gonna be 300
If there's
abutters?
50 abutters, I don't think they're going to fit 50
I don't know.
signatures on a plan.
I don't know. So,
You have to print a big plan.
I mean, I guess they could do it on the back of the plan, theoretically.
Can we introduce an addendum section to the plan which is specific to signatures?
So what I brought up as my concern before is that in a certain situation, somebody less than honest may have the signatures obtained, change the plans, and then have people, the abutters won't know that they signed off on something that isn't being built. So in this case, signing the plan makes sense, but if there's enough abutters where there's no room to sign the plan, how is that handled? You can't, I think you'd run into the same problem of people would be signing a sheet of paper they don't know would be attached to the plan that they're approving.
But in those circumstances, then they wouldn't be able to avail themselves of this exception.
That isn't specified though. So if you have a zoning enforcement officer that's new, that's not aware of the intent of this change, they could just say, sure, you got all the signatures, doesn't matter that it's on a separate piece of paper, go move forward. They don't know that they're gonna
I
have to
thought we
refer
were
that.
saying that it has to be on the plan.
Yeah,
So
that's
it could
what
start
it
on the
says.
plan and then extend it to the second sheet. So that might solve the problem.
Right, but if we're saying that one signature or one person not signing will send it to the ZBA, they could just not get that person's signature, or put that one person's signature on a separate piece of paper. I'm just trying to poke holes.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Because even the 6 month, here I am now, now I must do a devil's advocate also.
Yeah.
You know, there could be a snowbird,
I know.
and they're gone for 6 months, and they're waiting for them to come back. They get 12 of the 14 signatures, and the 2 snowbirds aren't coming back until just before town meeting, because of course everybody comes back for town meeting. And they left in November, and they're not coming back until May. We may have killed the 6 month.
12 months,
12 months. Yeah, I think 12 months was
12 months.
safer.
okay.
Because we do
Okay,
have snowbirds.
Problem with that again is if a house gets sold in 12 months and there's a new owner that's not on the certified abutters list, because the abutters list really expire after like 30 days, 60 days. So
Wow.
if there's a new owner, could be next door. The person went 8 months beforehand, got the signature of the previous owner, they knew they were selling, they said, I don't care what you build. And then they've got, the new owner has something going up that they didn't even know about.
And the bigger you make the window, the more likely that could pop up.
Right.
Which I'm gonna guess is more likely than the person missing for 6 months.
But the house will be sold?
I think it's more likely that somewhere in that 300
foot radius.
foot radius circle, someone's gonna sell a house, then someone's gonna be gone entirely for 6 months. I'm not saying the 6 months can't happen, I just think that's less likely than a
So
house.
do we put it on a timeframe at all? Like which is the tougher standard there?
So I think if you go with if you require a certified abutters list, that's the time limit. If they don't have a certified abutters list and signatures within that time frame of that still being certified, then they couldn't.
Because that's my point. So that if they have to sign the plan, you know, that one plan, you know, or can it be a facsimile where they email the plan to somebody that's in Florida? They sign it, and it's a second one. You know, can you have multiple copies with, you know what I mean? How open can we have this?
I don't think that would be a problem. I think the concern that I brought up is that somebody would be signing a blank sheet of paper that's not attached to the plan, and if the plan changes, they won't know that. If somebody's signing a copy of the plan, they know what's on the plan.
Okay,
They've
good.
seen it. It's
Or
just-
you could sign a copy of the plan, but then that person's not gonna sign it. So you make changes for that person, and they sign the new plans, and this person isn't agreeing.
Yeah, but
right, but
I mean,
then
that
I
can
think they
happen
would know
too.
that the plans would be different.
yeah,
But I don't
that's-
think the person who first signed would know that. They said, I signed
Right,
off.
but then when it goes before, they would have to provide both copies of the
Oh,
plan to
okay.
the.
Yeah, right,
to the
because
zoning
you're-
enforcement officer. They
okay.
say, well,
All
these
right.
plans are different.
All right.
Yeah, and the zoning person would look at the plans,
Yep,
and they do look at plans.
okay.
I
So,
have a small thing, I'm wondering aloud.
go ahead.
John G says 300 feet of proposed work. Is that better than 300 feet of property lines? Like,
No,
I meant the property on which the proposed work was.
Okay, so not the work
Not the
itself.
work itself, the property lines, yeah. Because the assessors won't be able to make that kind of a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is now. It's-
I don't know what the wording is. That sounded to me like the site where you're
Yeah,
putting.
because you're basically, the work comes out 300 feet and the assessor just gives you the list. And
Okay.
Okay.
let us go out to everybody.
So would everyone be comfortable voting on something that we don't have written down in front of us, but that if I read and then John and I work out the,
Isn't that how we usually do it?
yes, that is how we usually do it. I'm
Exactly. So come on, we're
just
doing it-
asking,
we're
just
doing it-
asking.
Come on, we're not changing precedent.
Okay, so, and just to clarify, the first line of this, items A and B. A is obviously the one we're talking about. B is non-conforming building or structures which are not single or two-family dwellings. Okay, that's what part B is referring to. And I don't think that we want to make this apply to that. Okay, is that true? Okay, good. So we're striking that. It's just item A above.
Yep.
And legal counsel and John and Elaine may decide that this paragraph is better to be putting under paragraph A rather than at the end. So that part may vary as well, okay? So,
Before you start through.
yeah, go ahead.
I would suggest adding, I know there's a space for 4, but I would suggest adding some kind of clause that says the zoning enforcement officer at any time may defer to the zoning board of appeals and not grant this waiver or something to that extent. So that it gives the zoning enforcement officer an opportunity to say, no, I don't feel comfortable with this, and not feel compelled to issue a waiver or not issue a waiver.
Well,
I'm fine with that, but it
says
does say
right?
may waive.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's may waive, yeah.
I
But
feel
just
like
to
it might
highlight
just
it.
be clearer to explicitly state that and say,
Okay.
if they, even if they get all the abutters, and they say they're
You
okay
don't
with it,
have
they
to
could
sign
say,
off.
nope, I still want it to go to ZBA.
Okay.
Okay,
He reserves the right to reject or, okay.
okay. And John, my intention is, while this is fresh in my mind after the meeting, I will write this out, I will type it out, and send it to you, and then you can like modify, if I got any of the pieces wrong, okay? So zoning enforcement officer may waive the requirement for a special permit under 210-128 item A under the following circumstances. Does not alter the footprint, does not alter the overall height, okay? And 3, the owner obtains agreement from all current abutters within 300 feet of property lines on which the work will be done by signature on the plans and or drawings showing the planned alteration. Seems like a little awkward, but the certified list of abutters can be obtained from the town assessor. The signatures must be obtained within, what did we decide? Within the time frame of the
I don't think you
certified?
need to specify that, because if you say a certified list of abutters, the list itself is only certified for a period of time,
Okay,
and after that, and I think it's stamped with like this is the certification date, so I don't think you need to say that, but I would say,
we can add this clarification about multiple copies of the plan may be used to obtain the signatures. Or something along those lines, but the signatures, is it clear that the signature should be on the plan? I mean, it's right in there, but is it clear to everybody? Okay. And
I think
then zoning enforcement officer may at any time defer to ZBA. Well, we put in Board of Appeals, and not grant the waiver.
I would say the certified list of abutters shall be obtained from the
Shall be
assessor.
obtained.
No one else is
Got
going
it.
to issue a certified list of abutters, but it's just,
Yeah,
Just so there's
I
no
understand that. Okay. We're good with that? Okay.
Oh, and the right to reject.
And, zoning enforcement officer may at any time defer to ZBA. Defer this application as this matter?
may decline to issue a waiver and defer to the
Decline,
ZBA.
uh-huh. Zoning enforcement officer may at any time decline to issue the waiver and
Or maybe,
defer this matter to ZBA.
I may be wordsmithing too
A
much.
it's a
Be
refer.
declined to act on a waiver petition. And
We'll work on that. We'll work on, you gotta
Would it be
trust
refer or defer?
us. Besides, legal counsel is
Would it be
gonna
refer
review
or
this,
defer?
and he's gonna like rewrite it, or she. Okay, so,
Yeah, we were just talking about that the zoning enforcement officer may refer or defer to the ZBA.
Defer.
okay.
Good.
Good.
Oh, could you read that back? No.
I thought you might be kidding.
Did you read that middle part?
No,
Okay, so moved.
thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 2 down. Or 1.5, since we have to rewrite it. Okay.
Did I hear the check mark?
I did the check mark. I'm sorry if you didn't hear it. Okay,
Is that an E-Hop
There.
pen?
it is, yes, it is.
Nice.
I got it at the special town meeting.
Nice.
Okay.
Did you get it honestly, or did you borrow it from somebody and not give it back?
No, I actually
there's
got it
this
from the
one.
table,
No,
where they had a bunch of them out.
offered for free.
I asked, I said, can I have one of those? Yes, you can have one of those.
Yesterday,
So-
I opened up the plastic to put 20 more pens in the pot.
Yay. Okay, I would like to go to the solar overlay.
Oh,
And, so Ted worked on this wording.
kind of.
Okay.
I kind of more read the wording and then asked questions out loud. So in emails, and I can't remember, I know I sent John and Mary an email, it might have been just the two of them, that pretty much said, I don't know how to write a bylaw at all, and I'm pretty much gonna take Wellesley's. And I don't know if there's plagiarism in the world of writing laws. But if there is, we could be in trouble. And then going through it, there's so many things I don't know. I know what I think we're on board, we're trying to achieve. But for example, in the copy you got, the copy I emailed, you can see highlighted in colors and stuff, so it might be clearer, but I like to write on paper. So for example, in the very first paragraph, I don't know anything about the science and technology of solar farms. I don't know if it's good to say 250, I assume that's kilowatts direct current. But I don't know if that's a good number. I have absolutely no idea if that's a definition of a large solar, like what it means. So there are a lot of instances like that in here where I honestly don't know what it's talking about. And hopefully, before we vote or pass it along, someone who does know about these things can take a
Can I
look.
jump in
Please.
before? I think, while I appreciate all of the work you did in amending Wellesley's, I think it may just be easier to, in the applicability section, set where the overlay is there. And maintain the rest of the solar bylaw as it is, because it's still gonna tell the board
Instead
what
of
to
making
do.
a whole separate section.
Right, just basically say, this law or this bylaw, this section applies only to properties located within the solar overlay district, which encompasses
I love that.
X, Y, and Z parcels.
Then all the setbacks are already set and all of the, because there was a place where it talked about lighting, there was a place that talked about,
Yeah, I think to do this, you would want to say, referenced on the map entitled Solar Overlay District and encompassing parcels
beautiful.
X, Y, and Z.
So it would be on 2A of this, on the first page. A2, I should say,
I think, so this is,
So
applicability.
just borrow
I
that
think
language.
you took, this is Wellesley's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be referenced to this.
Okay.
It would be in section 210-201, applicability.
Okay.
10-201.
210-201.
And you could do a 210-201A, say solar overlay location or something like that, and then specify where it is there.
Number 132 in the document. Page 132? Okay. Construction and use.
210
Yeah, because I feel better about it, because, one of the things that drives me crazy is when our legislators make laws about stuff they have no idea what they're doing, so So, yeah, because I don't I don't know the numbers too,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
yeah, no.
And I would not, I'd be totally a hypocrite if I
Yeah, no,
agreed to
completely.
something, so that was great, that was great, Ted.
In any zoning.
But I like that. That also simplifies our job. And then our job mostly is to agree on what we think we ought to recommend as the overlay.
And simplifying it for town meeting also.
Right.
It's just like, we're not changing anything, we're just saying where you can do this and that.
So the other part of my email, I think, to everybody was, I didn't have a paper map, and I know I can get a map online, but I don't know how to then play with it. So John's suggestion, and I liked it, if I understood it correctly, was to suggest that the solar overlay districts are those places that already have solar. I think those places that are in the process that look like they're gonna be approved.
So we have one that submitted an application, so by zoning rules, it is currently in the process.
Right,
and
so
can-
go ahead.
It is free to be developed
Right.
as it's currently done.
So we would make that, so that's the Liberty Mutual site
Right.
and the Wood Street site.
Wood Street site's already permitted, that's done.
So that, okay, so
Yep.
that's, even though there's no solar, it's done.
Right, yep.
And then along 495, including the cloverleafs, we could include the turnpike cloverleafs, but I don't think anything would go there because of wetlands issues. And who knows what the
it's-
state
and it's-
final
and it's
design
too
is gonna
low.
look like anyway.
To lowland, yeah.
So I'm just stealing from John, and I'm suggesting that's what we make the solar overlay. The 6 solar farms we have or are permitted, is that what you said the number was?
It's around that, I don't know.
Plus 495 / cloverleafs.
And you may, I don't know if there are other parcels that would be suited for it. I mean, Harvey's may be good, because landfills are usually good spots for solar, so I don't think you wanna,
How much of
Prevent
Harvey's is
that.
in Hopkinton?
I don't know. But if there are other, so Wood Street Solar property is, I think, widely accepted as a very good piece of land for solar, and so if there are other properties in town that are like that, we may wanna identify
Yeah.
those. I don't
I
know.
agree, and I'm okay with Harvey.
So I don't know what those properties are, so it would take some work to identify them, and I don't know if that's something that can be done in time for town meeting. Because it
I
might
think-
take a site walk, it might take,
I think that planning board at least, gave us this instruction that they would like to see something before the end of January for this town meeting. So I think that, again, we go ahead with
Yeah,
the
let's,
smaller change that we have already identified as being possible, and then we can talk to them about continuing this work the next year to potentially
because
identify.
there's 9 of them on the planning board, and they can tweak some stuff. And
So
take it
John G., were you talking about striking any part of the applicability section that we have right now, or just adding to it?
I think you need to strike the first sentence.
Okay,
Or maybe not strike it, maybe say, construction and use of commercial solar photovoltaic installation or any part thereof shall be permitted within the solar overlay district as defined in map XYZ
okay,
and on the parcels enumerated below.
okay. So instead of in any zoning district, we would say within this, solar overlay district.
Within the, I think you need to refer to a document, so it would be the,
Yes,
or you could say solar overlay district as shown on the map entitled blah, 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 solar overlay
Right.
districts. And then if you want to get more specific, you can actually list the parcel IDs.
But by listing the parcel IDs, aren't we essentially locking down what any potential solar district could look like? Because if, to your point, if we do identify another parcel which is suitable, which is not currently marked out on the map or in that list that you just mentioned, that wouldn't then apply, right? Because then we would have actually hardwired 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we identified 6. It's not there in this list, so wouldn't that be disqualified?
So if it's on the overlay map, it would be designated as solar. If it's a parcel ID, it would also then be on the map or Because the maps are done through GIS.
Okay.
So the GIS basically would take the parcels that are already approved and just make them hatched. And so if you're then adding parcels, they would just be added to the map as hatched.
So which means we should just refer to the map rather than list out the.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, that's how it's done in the WRPOD, the Water Resource Protection Overlay District
Okay.
map. I think it just refers to the map.
Got it.
And
Instead of
doesn't
listing
list
out the numbers
parcels.
directly
Right.
onto the.
It's just usually with solar, if you're limiting the number, it's gonna only be a few parcels. That's how Wellesley and Weston do it, is they list the actual parcels
Oh, okay.
in the bylaw. But you don't need to do that. It's just if there's only gonna be 6 parcels, it may
Okay.
make sense to list it. But it also may make sense to not list it if we're gonna do, the clover leaves and the, medians, because those might not have a parcel ID since they might be federally owned or state owned. So it may make sense to just say, refer to in the solar overlay map. We then just have to make a map.
That's true.
I'm looking at the map, and the Harveys is pretty clearly marked as industrial, and then it stops. So I think that if we wanted to include Harveys, or I think this is the town dump or something right near us in the center of town.
I don't know.
It's off of Cedar Street. There's a little municipal, I
Yeah,
think it's
Is that the snow dump?
yeah, maybe.
that's the snow dump. We walked it last year there's another solar farm going in there.
Is that solar development using that snow dump? I remember
No,
that coming through Concom,
it was kind
but I
of
don't remember exactly.
off to the side of it,
Yeah.
but the snow dump area is actually kind of small.
It's too small, actually.
Yeah, too small to
The
put a farm.
purple part I'm looking at, comparing to the other solar farms I know of, is big enough that all I'm saying is I would be okay with including those places as well. Because I agree, I think building on top of a landfill sounds about right. We're not chopping down any trees, and we're not destroying nature, we're just covering up a landfill.
So we're talking about the 6 existing
6
approved,
question mark. We don't know
six
for
or
sure.
more,
We can identify.
either built or
Yeah.
approved.
And again,
Parcels.
the planning board could still add or subtract
Yes.
what we have in there
But
anyway.
they were asking for our
Yes.
suggestions. too.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're making suggestions.
And then, John, you can prepare that map for the town, for the planning
That would
board?
be IT. I don't have access to edit the
Okay.
GIS, so.
So
I
we're gonna have
work
to
with
do it on
IT.
paper for planning board to be able to comment. So, and they're gonna have to have that available for the,
It might be something very simple that IT can do if I just say, hey,
Oh, I
these are
don't
the
know.
parcel IDs.
Okay.
Can you just hatch them and create a separate?
okay,
map?
so you might be
I
able to
talk
create one for the
Yeah, I just have to talk to them.
public forum that they have. Okay, good. Okay, so, is everyone comfortable with what Ted has outlined as the parcels that will be in this initial proposal back to planning board?
Yes.
Okay?
We all
Anybody want
understand
to
what the
restate it?
parcels are?
You wanna go
I
ahead?
pulled up the map. So it's whatever has been approved or already has solar panels or is in the works, which is Liberty Mutual. Plus, I'm proposing the part of Harvey that's in Hopkinton,
Okay,
plus the town-owned spot there. Plus, all of this inside of 495 and the clover leaves at the interchange. All the way down from Milford up to, is that Westboro? Westboro.
okay.
Excuse me, John, do we have jurisdiction for inside of 495?
So we don't, I talked to town council about that. I mean, we don't have the ownership. So
We don't have ownership.
Wellesley only has one parcel that they allow for zoning. It's within a clover leaf. And so I asked town council about that, and they said Wellesley didn't have a problem, the state didn't have a problem approving that. So they said, as long as it's not the medians aren't the only land that are approved for solar, then it shouldn't be a problem. It's kind of on top of the other effort that the town is making.
What John had previously told us was that we don't own it, but we zone it.
Yeah.
So,
So town council basically said, if you only do the medians, it could be appealed because it would just be too high of a bar to agree with the state or the federal government to lease that land to then do that. But if you have all these other solar arrays that are already allowed in town, and
And
that's
we're
on
throwing
top
in
of
2 new ones.
it, that doesn't prohibit people from doing solar, it just kind of makes that one a challenging site to do it. But it doesn't effectively prohibit solar within town.
Okay, good.
Okay. So with those parcels as identified, okay, and then the wording change would be the first line of the applicability section 210-201, construction and use of a commercial solar voltaic installation or any part thereof shall be permitted. And then I'm striking the words in any zoning district subject. Subject should probably not be stricken. So striking in any zoning district and adding in that same spot, within the solar overlay district areas as shown on zoning map, blah, 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 whatever, that you add as the appropriate reference, okay? Yes. Okay. So, okay. Can I have a motion?
I will move that.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Check.
Big,
Yay!
So, if
That's
I
a
may,
good
through the
check.
chair,
Yes.
I have not had a chance to look through the rest of the solar bylaw to see if that causes problems. So I will do that. I don't think it does, because it's allowed everywhere. I don't think they put any restrictions on anything, but I will look through the solar bylaw itself.
Okay,
If that changes, it.
okay, good. All right. The next one that I have is, the potential to change the, or to make a temporary, waiver of the temporary sign laws for the, downtown business district. So there was some discussion last time of making this into, I think it was your suggestion, making this into a permanent addition to the zoning bylaws, Patrick, by just talking about anytime there's construction in front of your property, I know if that's, anytime there's construction in front of your property, we could do it. So, or we can restrict this to the downtown corridor project and just do it for that 2-year period or whatever, okay? So, that's the first point.
Yep.
And then I made a stab at making some of the wording. During the period of construction, temporary signs and sandwich board signs are allowed as follows. Any business affected by the construction, and I was saying that means construction is abutting the business or abutting parking for the business, may display a temporary sign or sandwich board within 2 blocks of construction. So I was envisioning this as, obviously the businesses may have their own ideas, and Ron, you can pipe in on any discussions you've had, but that it would be probably, most likely at the perimeters of construction, that they would say, hey, we're still over here.
So this isn't on the agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right,
That's why I
We
was,
can't talk about it.
okay. So, yeah.
that's what I was pointing to. I was giving, that's what the
Okay,
guy said.
yes, and that's one of the things that I'm like, well, why didn't you put this on the agenda?
So I thought, the reason I didn't put it on the agenda is because I thought we were waiting on the chamber to talk to the businesses to see what kind of signs they wanted.
Okay, well, that's fair,
And
yeah.
since we're talking about it already, I just want to point out that sandwich signs are not prohibited.
I know they aren't, but they're only allowed in front of the businesses, and that's not what would be applicable during this particular time frame.
Right, if they want.
Because, yeah, if they wanted to do something, they would probably need it off their own premises. Okay, so anyhow,
And if we were talking about it, it should be anywhere where construction is, because it happens in 495 a lot, on either side of the Cloverleaf and that kind of stuff, and then down by Legacy, this stuff happens a lot too. And if there's, it could happen to Western Nurseries and those kinds of things, so.
So, yeah, I encourage everybody to take a look at this more thoroughly now, now that you have it in Word, so you can play with it yourselves, and just look at the wording and think about it some more. And then, that'll give you a chance to discuss
The
this.
executive board is meeting tomorrow morning, and it's on the agenda for us to
Okay,
review.
yeah, that's great.
Can I just ask a question to
Yeah.
related to this, when I was looking at different wording, I wanted to check, there are two bylaws that talk about before election, after election. So, and before Patriots Day and after Patriots Day. So they would override anything that we put up, let
And during Patriots Day, the month during Patriots Day.
Yes.
We suspend it all because
Yes.
we don't know what the heck's gonna happen.
Okay, that would generally override anything we let.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yep, it does override.
Yeah, the month around Patriots Day.
Okay.
Just makes it easier.
So the other two items oh, actually, I'm sorry, industrial B, number 6, and it was a housekeeping item that, here we go, that Elaine and John suggested. Essentially wanting to update the industrial B district bylaw by, changing the numbering within the bylaw itself. So she proposed that. I'm okay with that, it makes sense to
Make
me.
a motion to accept.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, abstentions? All right.
Who seconded?
Those tend to get through town meeting pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a housekeeping by Elaine. Okay.
Yep. Elaine needs it. All right,
If I.
two
may-
other items. Yep, go
I may
ahead.
also talk on something related to that. I spoke to, and I don't know if I brought this up to you all before, but I spoke to Connor. Because
Temporary, yeah.
because there are just typos and formatting
Oh, gosh,
problems.
yeah.
And I don't know how the committee wants to handle this, but apparently none of them can be changed without a town meeting vote. So whether it's just making this very comprehensive listing of all of the formatting changes and typos and numbering, and, I mean, there's things where it's literally like, they just kind of put a justified setting, so there's a huge space between two words, they can't even change that without a town meeting vote. So, I don't know, that's something to think about, and I don't know if we're gonna get it done for this town meeting, but, it's gonna be, I have to use this zoning book now, because my other zoning book has so many flags on it that I can't actually read it. But that's related to what Elaine did on this one.
Okay. Yeah. I think whatever way that you guys come up with that is the most streamlined, efficient way for town meeting to take a look at it is
Or
the
if
way
it's
to do
even
it.
needed. That's the other question, if it's even needed. Because it's, like I said, it's formatting. This is a numbering issue. A lot of these are formatting spaces, just wonky way of writing things, and
So maybe just edit them as those bylaws get
Yeah,
changed.
if
If it happens to get opened up for some other.
For me, we could
substantial
also do it
change, clean it up.
like we did with the, when we had to accept, about 25 different roads, because we just said, we're gonna just accept the ones that were just there. We did, for like 5 or 6 a year for the last few years. We could just do that, just go, the ones that just start at the beginning, the ones that are just glaring, we get five more housekeepings done. And
that's
then,
true.
and then 5 more next year, and then, or 10 more,
that's-
whatever ends up being easier, whatever timing allows.
Yeah.
But let's not try to attack the whole thing at once, because that's asking you to do way too much on top of what you.
But John, once we make that, let's say, comma change or a period change, who is going to certify that this doesn't change the inherent meaning of the line? Is that something that we run by someone to say that, okay, you haven't really materially changed anything? In your example, the spacing, does somebody actually then have to take a look and say, removing this period or removing this indentation does not materially affect this?
town council will review it before it
Okay.
goes. I mean, they'll write the article itself, and then planning board will go up there and present the article and say, this is a housekeeping item. Town
Okay.
council can say, it doesn't change the intent
Got
of the
it.
bylaw.
Okay.
He's got a point, though, because planning board may have wanted a dramatic pause before going on to some section.
That is true. Okay. So whatever changes you can get going, within the department,
I'll work on it.
we'll
If
push
you
them
can, and if not.
through. We'll push them through, anything that can be
And if you
done.
can, we'll just, because we still have more meetings, when it's not like we're going to.
No,
just
we're gonna
be-
have at least one more meeting I think, before the deadline of when it has to go to, planning board. We have a meeting scheduled on Thursday, January 23rd, without you, right? John G. Because,
Was it a game?
because we couldn't meet on the 20th, because that's Martin Luther King Day. So we're meeting that Thursday. Okay,
Okay.
everybody good?
And on that day, the signage with the construction is front and center. On the 25th. What else do we have that we're trying to get done before? That's the last meeting, right?
The signage, yes. And then there were these two other items that you had on the agenda. I assume that they were off our work plan. Parking requirement and long-term development opportunities. I don't know that they were some of the ones that we identified as being needed to be
They were
discussed.
just next on the list.
Oh, okay. Okay, I don't think they're items that we had agreed needed to be discussed for this,
I don't
town
think they're
meeting.
ready for prime time.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Mary, could we pat ourselves on the back and read the list of what we've gotten done and is being sent to the planning board?
That would be great.
So do we not want to address these last two items, or are we just passing?
I've done no planning to put these forward, so I have nothing on them. Okay, hang on just one moment. Work plan, work plan, work plan. Okay, here we go. Was there anything else that we wanted to get done? Okay, so I'm just gonna go through our highlights. Remove car wash district and downtown business district. We've already voted on that and to go to the planning board, so that's done. The wireless communications bylaw, that was something that yep, no, we already voted on that on November 21st, yep. So that's all set.
Are all of our votes unanimous at this point?
5-0 for those two. Yeah, I think all of them have been. Okay. Business survival plan for downtown construction, that's something we're still working on. The accessory family planning unit, the family dwelling unit, we did today. The zoning enforcement officer waiver in certain circumstances, we did today. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. The expiration of permits, this is something we didn't get to, and that was, I don't know if you have any chance of looking at any of those before our next meeting.
I don't think any of them are going to be zoning issues.
Okay, understood. Solar farm overlay district, we voted on today. And residential fire sprinklers, that is a big one that we can discuss next time. I will definitely get some suggestions out there ahead of time, because we're gonna have to proceed it, to get to a vote if we're going to send it there. We won't have a chance to defer it to another meeting. But we can, of course, decide not to, and just to continue to discuss it and, for the next year. And there was some suggestion that maybe we could do the short-term rentals, Airbnb. And this is a medium to low priority, was subdivision lighting. Basically adding something to site plan review or subdivision regs. That's not a town meeting thing, right? So that doesn't matter for town meeting.
Subdivision regs would be a town meeting thing, it just wouldn't be.
It would be?
No, sorry, subdivision regs would not be a town meeting
Okay.
thing.
So
Site
that's
plan-
something that we do not need to discuss this month.
Unless it's within a subdivision, within zoning, open space, village housing.
Okay. So basically what we were, that was a recommendation of the planning board, come up several times. It was basically to get people away from the concept of streetlights that we generally don't allow anyhow, or encourage not to have happen, but instead encourage wayfinding lights. So it's much smaller lights at the end of driveways. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize we were discouraging
Streetlights?
streetlights in
Yeah.
divisions.
Yeah, and
Oh, I kinda
some
like
people
them.
on planning board feel really strongly about absolutely no lights, and I'm like,
Wow.
where did that come from? Because I really prefer lights when, I'm
I-
driving
I
around
think
at night. I'd
In-
kind of
in-
like to see where I'm going.
Intersections.
So, but there's really strong feelings on the other side of things, yeah.
So I think that if I could just kind of take a interpretation of that whole thing. There's been confusion when we're talking about these types of developments that the way that it's written in the subdivision regs, I forget how it specifically, but it basically says lighting, if provided, shall be shown on plans.
Yeah.
And it's some people interpret it as, well, lighting needs to be shown on plans. I take the interpretation of, if it's being proposed, you need to show where it is on the plans.
Yeah.
So I think there's confusion there, and I think some members are saying, well, they're taking the idea that it needs to be shown and therefore, or it needs to be provided and shown, and therefore maybe we don't want them to be there, so maybe we should take it out, but it's a bit confusing, because I don't think it's actually
And
required.
it's right, when you first brought it up, I thought it was to require lighting, just so people, when you come to intersections that.
I'd like some lighting, but there's other people who feel
As I'm getting
quite
older,
the opposite.
As I'm getting older, I like the lighting.
I sometimes miss my own driveway. So this is a problem. Okay. So that was simply on the list that we can talk about, but it is certainly not a high priority for. So that really was it of what we had identified or planning board had identified as things that we wanted to get to this town meeting. So the only,
Not doing
yeah.
garbage cans, huh?
So next time will be residential fire sprinklers and the parking, temporary parking, whatever we can do. I think that's the only thing we can do for the signage for downtown quarter, downtown businesses. Okay,
It feels good to me, though.
good. Yeah.
Hey, some towns, they do it every 5 years and do a whole bunch of them. This is a great thing about Hopkinton, is that we nibble at it, every single year, and we get stuff done that, just like when Mr. Terry came and talked about it, and we attacked it and got some things changed.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Everyone had a chance to review the minutes from December 30th?
I missed that.
Okay. I have a few minor things. I don't know if I should read those out, or should I just give them to John afterwards? What do you think?
How minor are they?
Well, I was at the bottom of the first page, it says, Ms. Larson Marlowe said that neighbors likely wouldn't notice the addition of an ADU. I believe that I said that, because we were talking about intent at that point. It says that the intent of the article is that neighbors wouldn't notice the addition of the ADU. Okay, so that's what I would appreciate that change to. And then something on the second page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th paragraph, in the middle of that. Ms. McNamara said that the stairway can be seen from the street. I think as I'm reading that whole paragraph, I think that,
I'm sorry, what page is this?
Page 2?
second page,
The largest paragraph.
the largest paragraph in the middle, starting with Mr. Barker Hook. And then the third sentence said, Ms. McNamara said, unless the stairway can be seen from the street. I'm pretty sure that it should say, said, unless the stairway cannot be seen
Yeah,
from
I
the
think so
street.
too.
Okay? Just in the way I was reading the entire sequence of things there. Okay, and everything else is, just no other changes needed. Okay,
Move to approve as amended?
Second.
thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Good. Our next meeting is January 20, what was it again? 23rd. Can we look at a date in February?
23rd of Friday?
Thursday.
Thursday, the 23rd.
Thursday, the 23rd. Does everybody, at least everyone here can make it? Good,
My calendar says I can make it.
okay. And then the next meeting after that, I would like it to be February 3rd.
What day is that?
So that's a Monday.
Okay.
That would be back to Mondays, alternating with the planning board.
Okay.
Now, we have, we have a possibility of maybe taking a week off in the middle of February, not going every other week, because we've gotten past our big push,
Take a breath.
and we can take a breath.
I'm in favor of taking a breath.
Okay.
Me too.
Should we make that the second possible meeting in February, because that's President's Day anyhow, and it would be impossible to schedule a meeting on Monday?
So the 17th, we're
Yeah.
gonna.
No end school
we're gonna skip?
vacation.
17th, we skip?
Vacation.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay, so we
Not
wouldn't,
that it affects me
So we are
anymore.
scheduling the 3rd, you said?
so does everybody want to schedule the 3rd, or should we skip all of the month of February?
Let's do the 3rd.
Well, the third doesn't make any difference because the Patriots won't be in the Super Bowl, so. Normally I would have said no meeting on Monday because I'd be too
Okay,
tired.
let's meet on the 3rd, okay?
So, just so you know, there is a personnel board meeting in this, it's like in 3 different rooms, until 7.
Okay,
So,
so we'll be right at 7.
I don't know if they'd go that long.
So it's also February 3rd is the last day to lock down the warrant, right? So would it matter? Do we want to do something before or after or something?
Say that again?
February 3rd is the day to lock down the warrant for the town meeting?
Yeah, would that really affect us in any way? Because that's really the
We
deadline.
can't get anything to the
In-
planning
Yeah, we
board.
wouldn't be able to
and-
do anything, yeah. So we would have to be discussing future items. I'm just thinking, planning board can't even do anything that day, because they'd have to have done it the previous week. So, right, okay. Okay,
So we're
so
saying yes to
February,
the 3rd.
February 3rd, and that will be the only meeting in February, and then
That's
we'll
good,
meet in
I like
March, okay? Okay, good work. Thank you, everyone. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay.
Sorry,
Thanks.
I was scheduling the meeting. Who moved?
Oh, boy.
I moved
Sorry.
it.
Okay. And who seconded?
Me, great, work.
Hey, I'm back in the same seat tomorrow.